Chapter 10, Caste and Family Lineage. Eligibility to worship the Lord. Faith alone qualifies a man to chant the holy name of Krishna, not the mundane hair-splitting analysis of caste, creed, or family lineage. An elevated birth in a Brahmana family does not necessarily make him eligible for chanting the Lord's name. Similarly, a low-born person having proper faith is certainly not rejected from the path of devotional service. Non-devotees are puffed up by high birth in ordinary materialistic society. Those taking high birth are a privileged class, but to a devotee of Krishna all such material designations are inconsequential. Persons becoming puffed up by high birth disparage the process of devotional service and thus pave their way to hell. They disrespect the devotees of the Lord and cannot discriminate between religion and irreligion. Confounded by self-conceit, they engage in sinful and illicit activities. A low-born devotee is superior to a high-born non-devotee. If a low-born cobbler, who must handle animal hide, worships the Supreme Lord Krishna, he certainly receives the full mercy of the Lord. But if a Brahmana born of a high lineage does not worship the Supreme Lord Krishna, becomes bereft of all good qualities and forfeits the Lord's mercy. A well-bred Brahmana may possess the 12 Brahmanical qualities as enumerated in the scriptures, but if he does not serve the Supreme Lord, Krishna, then he paves his path to hell. A devotee engaged in devotional service to Lord Krishna is immediately decorated with all good qualities. These manifest in him automatically and become his constant companion. Decorations on a dead body look grotesque and shocking. Similarly, devotional practices like chanting and austerities performed by non-devotees are superficial and a sham. Freedom from attraction and repulsion for matter. My dear brothers, cultivate undeviating devotion for Lord Chaitanya, the son of Mother Sasi. Then you can easily forget all the false identifications of this body. Caste, race, etc. will not matter to you anymore. If you can discard false ego and pride, you can facilely give up attachment for material life. Once detachment comes, your heart will become pure. Withdraw your senses and subdue the passion for material life. Simultaneously, develop attachment and attraction for the Lord's lotus feet. You may be born as a Brahmana, but you must root out the pride of being born in a high-class family and become meek and humble. The Lord is compassionate to the humble. The Supreme Lord is always mercifully disposed towards humble persons. Arrogance and humility cannot reside harmoniously in a person. Pride draws one to hell, so scrupulously avoid it. Become humble and surrender yourself to the lotus feet of Sri Radha and Sri Govinda and experience the greatest joy. O Lord Nityananda! When will I receive your mercy so that I can take shelter of your lotus feet and give up my insolence and false pride? Chapter 11, The Lamp of Navadvipa. Sri Navadvipa and Sri Vrindavana are non-different. The earth is the foremost planet in the entire universe and Gauda, Bengal, is the most elevated country on this earth. In Bengal, Navadvipa, consisting of 164 sq miles, is incalculably auspicious tract of land in the entire cosmos. The holy Ganga flows through this land, and the sacred waters of the rivers Yamuna and Sarasvati converge here into the Ganga. On Ganga's eastern bank is Mayapur, the direct manifestation and exact replica of Goloka Vrindavana in the spiritual sky. In the house of Sri Sasi Devi in Mayapur, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Gauranga, appeared for the pleasure of his parents. Towards the end of the previous Yuga, namely in Dvapara Yuga, the Supreme Personality as Krishna had performed super excellent and transcendental pastimes, that of the Rasa dance, with Srimati Radhika and all the young damsels of Braja. As Lord Krishna, the son of Mother Yasoda and Nanda Maharaja, he descended to this material world with his associates, paraphernalia, the spiritual abode Braja, etc. He brought with him the highest precious treasure of Goloka Vrindavana, namely the Parakya Bhava, or the loving conjugal exchanges in the mood of a paramour lover. He had exhibited this mood in the Rasa dance with the young damsels of Vrindavana. That same Supreme Personality has now descended again to the material world in his own transcendental abode of Mayapur in Bengal and brought with him that same spiritual, loving mood. But this time it is carefully camouflaged. The esoteric reason for Lord Gauranga's appearance: the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna had three intimate desires which remained unfulfilled, even after having performed so many pastimes. Therefore, appearing as Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu, he came to relish the fulfillment of all those desires. He always wanted to understand the glory of Radharani's love for him, the wonderful qualities in him that she alone relishes through her love, the divine ecstasy she experiences when she realizes the sweetness of his love for her. Lord Krishna, as the supreme enjoyer and hero of all pastimes, had never tasted the three mellows of happiness relished by Srimati Radharani. The divine ecstasy she experiences when she realizes the sweetness of his love for her. Therefore, Lord Krishna decided to manifest himself as his own devotee in the form of Lord Chaitanya, imbued with the inner sentiment and bodily luster of Srimati Radharani. Having considered all this, Lord Krishna appeared in Navadvipa, Bengal, with all his associates, paraphernalia, transcendental abode, etc., accompanied by feelings of great happiness. Serving Krishna is part of worshipping Lord Gauranga. My dear brothers, give up your material aspirations and plans and come and reside in Navadvipa. Serve the Supreme Lord Sri Gauranga by remembering his most confidential transcendental pastimes he performs throughout the day and night, Astakalya Lila. All your miseries and distresses will disappear. Lord Krishna's transcendental pastimes in Goloka are divided into 8 three-hourly pastimes covering day and night. These pastimes are known as Astakalya Lila and are eternally going on. Each of these 8 pastimes inspires a particular mood. When they are relished in the mood set by Lord Chaitanya, one experiences the highest ecstatic prema. One who has developed a single-minded resolve to worship Lord Krishna, should meditate on the 8 three-hourly pastimes of Lord Chaitanya in Navadvipa. They are the repositories of priceless gems of ecstatic love of Krishna. If one wants to worship Lord Krishna but is not submerged in the devotional mood of Lord Chaitanya, he can never perceive the most confidential and esoteric truth about Krishna. An Acharya is not restricted by Varnashrama system. To be a real Acharya does not depend on whether one is a sannyasi or belongs to any of the 3 other orders of the Varnashrama system, or even whether he is born outside of the Varnashrama society. What decides the issue is whether he has realized the absolute truth about Lord Krishna. If one rejects the absolute truth for the non-essential, material system of Varnashrama, then he is led to a bogus spiritual master. This association jeopardizes his spiritual birth. Chapter 12, The Glories of the Vaishnavas. Devotional and Places of Pilgrimage. A person who goes to a place of pilgrimage only for taking a bath in holy rivers and worships the deity, whom he considers to be made of stone, will take a very long time to develop true religious sentiments. On the other hand, as soon as one sees a pure devotee of the Lord, his heart is cleansed of all unwanted material desires. He is put into touch with the highest objective of life, and transcendental devotional service dawns within his heart like the rising morning sun that dissipates all darkness. Associating with a pure devotee after many births, when the living entity receives the causeless mercy of the Supreme Lord, he comes into contact with a pure devotee of the Lord, and by this association he becomes gradually free from the material disease. The pure devotee purified the conditioned soul's heart, and he understands unequivocally that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Lord of all other lords. The Kanastha neophyte devotee. A neophyte devotee is one who has received formal initiation from a spiritual master and worships the deity form of the Lord, strictly adhering to rules and regulations. He cannot distinguish between an intermediate devotee and a pure devotee. He does not know how to properly respect a pure, elevated devotee of the Lord. The Madhyama intermediate devotee. An intermediate devotee is one who has developed love for the Supreme Lord Krishna, is affectionate and friendly to the Lord's devotees, is compassionate to the innocent and avoids the association of envious non-devotees. Very soon, on the strength of his devotional service and Krishna's mercy, an intermediate devotee becomes a first-class devotee or Uttama Adhikari. The Uttama Adhikari, first-class devotee, according to the instructions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, a first-class, or pure, Devotee of the Lord is one who sees Krishna in every living entity and sees every living entity as part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. He is completely free from envy, anger, or hate, and he has no friends or enemies. He is spiritually highly enlightened and is best amongst the Lord's devotees. The best of the first-class devotees utilizes his senses and things of this material world in executing pure devotional service. Free from the vices of greed, hate, anger, etc., he constantly perceives the Supreme Lord and his energies manifest everywhere. The wise devotee spends his days remembering and meditating on Lord Krishna's pastimes. He is no longer deluded by the temporary nature of mundane life and material duties. He is free from the urges of his body and sense, mind, and material intelligence, and he is transcendental to the dualities of birth and death, fear, hunger, and thirst. One whose heart has become the permanent abode of Lord Krishna, the son of Mother Yasoda, executes his duties only to maintain the body. He cleanses his heart of any desire to engage in fruitive activities. Such is the process of pure devotional service. Devotee is free from all material designations. The natural propensity for one who is in the material concept of life is to be attracted to speculative knowledge, fruitive activities, and the designations of caste and social order. When the pure soul begins associating with the body, he develops the mood of false identification, such as me and mine. But one who is free from such false identification is to be considered an eternally liberated soul and dear to the Supreme Lord Hari. He who is free from possessiveness and is completely detached from material things does not make bodily distinctions like you and me, which create imaginary friends and enemies. One who looks equally upon all living entities, making no distinctions between them, is an equiposed person, free from anxiety. He is certainly to be counted amongst the best of the devotees of the Lord. He never leaves the shelter of the Lord's lotus feet, even if he is offered all the opulences of the entire universe in exchange. The Lord's lotus feet are the most coveted object of the demigods and sages. Never for a single moment does he forget the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. He is foremost amongst the pure devotees of the Lord, and he is always in a blissful state of consciousness. Devotee is free from the threefold miseries. One who comes into contact with Lord Krishna's lotus feet has extinguished the fire of material desire within his heart by the soothing, iridescent rays emanating from the moon-like nails of the Lord's lotus feet. Why should he crave for the conflagration of material existence when his heart can always remain cool under the comforting shade of the Lord's lotus feet? Other symptoms of a first-class devotee. Once the devotee fastens Lord Krishna's lotus feet with the bonds of love, the Supreme Lord can never leave the throne of his heart. A first-class devotee of the Lord is automatically free from all duties and responsibilities, because he is wholly surrendered to the holy name of the Lord. Even in an unconscious state, he utters the Lord's name purely. One who understands the temporary nature of material duties and responsibilities, leaves all material activities and takes complete shelter of Krishna's lotus feet is certainly a first-class, elevated devotee and is very rarely found. The devotee engaged in devotional service, fully cognizant of the transcendental truth about Lord Krishna's original form, holy name, pure devotees, and the process of devotional service, is indeed foremost amongst the Vaishnavas. One who worships the Supreme Lord and his holy name with undivided faith, knowing them to be non-different, although he does not understand the intricacies of his own spiritual identity, is also to be considered a very elevated, first-class Vaishnava. This is Lord Chaitanya's opinion.